as we look at, some of those key drivers, that came out, for enhancing the technology space, there was a few that we've kind of touched on and that come out during the survey. One is around employee experience, having that consumer grade employee experience. It's still something that is on everyone's minds as we look at this area, being able to enrich the talent pipeline, trying to catalyze around performance improvements, connecting the ecosystem and simplifying tasks. These drivers around technology are still very important as we move forward. And, I think, one of the key things that you were kind of just touching on a little bit, Paul, was, what are the hidden costs of not having technology, right? What are mobility teams and their businesses missing out on by not having the technology to weigh and support their operations? And that probably lends itself a little bit to how do we overcome some of those barriers? We've talked a little bit about the features. What are the kind of business case drivers, or what are the things that people should touch on when doing a business case to get mobility technology in the first place? There's a number of different things that people look at around scalability of the technology and being able to scale up or scale down as programs change, agility, changing demographics, having visibility of the data, supporting, talent development and retention, the kind of speed of deployment that you talked about, Paul, being able to cut down on turnaround times, being able to free up time and eliminate some of those manual processes, supporting new vendors, and providing something to keep you competitive. And we've talked about this offline before, about this competitiveness. Maybe you could touch on that for me, Paul, around, what does IT and what does that technology really mean for you in terms of keeping it competitive, keeping yourselves competitive and being able to deliver for your business?
So when you had a slide about the macro and you're talking about possible recession, et cetera.
Yeah.
So having a platform, and it doesn't, you could start, a company could start small. I'm not saying that they have to have this full-blown tool or tools that do a number of things, but starting out small, and if you can get a handle on your costs, that will, and you can start measuring the costs and shopping it around to get the best costs for shipments, say, that you can't manage through spreadsheets or ad hoc. You can then save the company money, which in turn makes the company more competitive. Those funds could be used elsewhere, maybe to improve the mobility program, or maybe used for other aspects of your company's operations. But at the same time, your ability, or mobility's ability to offer, how do I say, more modern ways of interacting with your transferees, your assignees, either through a mobile app, through internally, we do a lot of it is self-service. So we're creating dashboards now for our reports, and the dashboards are, some are interactive, meaning I want to see all my assignments for a particular business unit for a particular month. So you answer a few questions and the dashboard presents the answers, or there's some standard ones, but it's all self-service. The other thing too around supporting the talent is they're on the road or wherever they're working today. Again, because of the pandemic, things changed, but you're allowing the individual to work where they are, whether it's the assignee, the transfer, the manager who has to approve the assignment. You're allowing them to work where they are. They don't have to have access to a spreadsheet, but we know through your laptop or a mobile device that they can log on and approve assignments, see what's going on. Especially if they're accountable, a manager is accountable for a number of assignees, they can track them. So you're giving your user community, and that's why I said that user experience is not just the transferee, the assignee, it's also the mobility team, that user experience. You're giving them the tools to work smarter and improve productivity. And you know, all those factor into that business case. It's not just pure cost. You got to recognize those 4 buckets of experience that I talked about earlier.
They do, and you know, it does. You know, as you're thinking through some of this stuff, it's how many hours, right? How much time can I save doing letters? How much time can I save on vendor initiation? You know, how much time can I save on reporting? Can I save on exception management? How much time can I save on rework and error corrections? And as you're trying to move off spreadsheets and get there, you know, even just some of these simple questions, being able to answer that and saying, you know, if I add all that up, I've got 400 hours a year that I could be spending better business partnering with the business or supporting, you know, the employees in a better way. So there's a lot, as you think about pulling together business cases, that's just, you know, can I really think about what it is that it would do for me? You know,
a good example is, Alan, is e-signature.
Yeah.
We implement signature, and e-signature has been a huge user experience and mobility administration experience. And I can't imagine going back to a wet signature. And I'll give an analogy. I know a little sidetrack here, but I was talking to someone this past week. Housing closings rather. So if you're buying or selling a house, they're not even meeting in person anymore. Everything is through e-signature.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, and that's a very simple thing. And think of the time savings when if you got into a car and had to go to a closing. Same thing if you had to go into an office or scan documents, print them out, sign them, scan them, send them back in. You know, it's time. There's a better way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've got a couple more questions. I know that we're nearing time. You know, data integrity, right? Big challenge for global mobility leaders, you know, ties directly into this slide here, you know, about how many hours can be saved on rework, error corrections, you know, where we're all trying to manage data integrity. You know, the cost to improve the situation, either by upgrades or new technology investment, often doesn't have the right amount of leadership support to advance. Any thoughts around that area? So, you know, as you look at data integrity, how do you put that on people's agenda and say, you know what, it's super important that if I don't get this right, then I'm going to be paying people wrong. Or, you know, here's the consequences. We're going to be filing taxes wrong, or, you know, their compliance could be wrong, or maybe they're not able to get a work permit. You know, translated into practical examples of what is the risk of that data being wrong and the consequences in terms of fines or penalties or reputational damage that may exist for organizations. You had any experience in that space around the data integrity piece?
Actually, having a standardized platform becomes a trusted source of the data. So all data has to flow through there, and that's what people should be basing all their compliance and reporting needs on. At the same time, if you're trying to make a business case to do something, whether you want to upgrade or get some new technology, I think everybody could cite examples where you've had to make corrections, whether it was a tax filing and you had to resubmit it, or an immigration application that might have been filled out incorrectly, or some violation, that you could use those as examples of how much time was spent on that. Was it an hour spent, 100 hours spent on it? That retax filing, did you have to redo it? How long did it take to redo all that? And like you said, Alan, just getting people paid correctly. I tend to use that as an example all the time. We reimburse through payroll. We give people advance on their housing. Not many people can afford 2 mortgages. So just to getting that correct, pay period to pay period is important.
Yeah, yeah. So here's a last interesting one that I think, is probably one of the toughest questions in mobility right now. So a lot of smaller service providers, ESPs, cross-cultural training organizations may be reluctant to adopt technology solutions because they're quite small, right? What solutions can you recommend to these smaller niche providers? I'll let you go first, Paul, see if you've got any thoughts on that one. I'll see what I can come up with.
One thing comes to mind right away is a small company or DSP or RMC, they don't necessarily have to host a solution. They could hop onto a SaaS cloud type solution where they buy time on it, and you're paying somebody to keep the system up and running, to put in the enhancements, to, if the solution provides immigration or tax services, they have the SMEs that research all those tax regulations and laws, or the immigration laws. They're maintaining, that's what you're paying for. But for the DSP or the RMC, you can then show your clients that you have a modern platform, that you can offer a service that's not spreadsheet based, it's on a modern platform. And most of those modern platforms will lend itself to having self-service for their clients, assignees or managers, and allowing people to access through a mobile app or through a laptop, etc. So yeah, it's almost like a sub underneath that DSP or that RMC, but you can embrace that very cost effectively in my time and my perspective, but at the same time provide your clients a more modern platform.
Yeah,
there are tools out there that do that today.
There are, and just a couple of thoughts in that space to wrap it up. I think, and this probably goes for the broader industry as well, is there's a pressure to use technology more and more. People are looking for more access to real-time data right the way through all of their downstream providers. There are some players, there are some specialist global mobility softwares out there for the smaller end of the market. I'm not going to name any names on here as a plugin, but if anyone wants to reach out afterwards, we're happy to give some recommendations around that. But to your point, Paul, even the smaller tools like Microsoft 365, where you can use a SaaS-based kind of custom built web service enabled spreadsheet, allows you to at least get onto that technology journey in a more modern way, right? And starting to explore some of those. There is still a cost, and you've got to still do your business case around there. But I think that the drive for integration in that real-time data is going to force some of the smaller providers to really look at how can I become part of that ecosystem that people are talking about. But I truly appreciate that it's not always easy in terms of some of the margins. But it's been a really, we're really excited to launch the full survey next week. The audience will all get access to that. I very much enjoy, I could speak to you all day, Paul, as you know, we speak a lot, but I love talking technology with you. I appreciate all your thoughts and insights, and love learning everything that IBM's up to from a technology perspective. You continue to innovate and be thought leaders in this space. And I want to thank you for joining us today, helping us launch the survey, talking a little bit about technology. And I look forward to chatting with you again. And Alex, I'm going to hand back to you, and just to give some quick closing thoughts as we wrap up the webinar here.
Fantastic. Thanks, Alan, and thanks, Paul. And yes, thank you for sharing some key insights from our GME report. looking forward to releasing the full findings and data with the delegates next week, and appreciate your support, Paul and Alan, of the launch event today. We had some fantastic questions coming in as well. So just to wrap up, as I mentioned, we are going to be sharing the key findings and also some further insights in next week's report, and it'd be great to get your feedback on those as well. And we'll hopefully be conducting this report on a regular basis. Like Alan said at the beginning, we lasted this in 2020 in the middle of the pandemic, which made some interesting insights, and I think it's a really interesting topic. And you know, although movement and adoption to technology is slow, we did see a slight increase, you know, over the past sort of 18 months during the pandemic. So it's interesting to see. And I think one of the key points which you obviously discussed was building the business case. And that's something where I think we need to further the conversation, and you know, and to leverage the elevated role that global mobility and HR leaders now have within their organisations, to be able to put that to their leadership, and you know, help digitize and modernize their programs.